Alrighty. Well, we've got 6:02 here. I just started the recording, so I think it'd be great for us to go ahead and get started. First and foremost, thanks to everyone who was able to RSVP and join this evening. It's been a really exciting initiative for a number of us here at Westward360 to be a part of, to really build a sustainable education program going forward. I know a number of you are familiar faces that have been on some of our webinars that we started back in June of 2024 around topics like the Corporate Transparency Act, the insurance market conditions, reserve studies, and a number of other topics. And we intend to keep them coming and really want to keep these on a monthly basis just so that you're empowered with a lot of good information from both our staff, from vendors like Yellowstone and Riley's team that we work with on a day in and day out basis at a number of properties as well. And really just making sure you're as informed as possible as board members, homeowners, prospective clients, whatever the case might be. So it's been a really exciting initiative, and we're just really appreciative of the folks that are attending these, and I hope that you continue to do so. Do check out on our education and events section our website, because we do update that frequently with upcoming webinars, and we will be sending out those invites to board members as well. But it's a great place to just view any upcoming activity and events that you might be wanting to participate in, whether they're virtual or in person. But without further ado, I'll go ahead and make a couple of introductions here. And I know that Riley's got a couple of slides introducing himself and myself as well. But just very briefly, I'm Eric Stazak, Executive Vice President here at Westward360. I've, over the 12-year career at Westward, I've been worn a variety of hats. Currently, I'm our Executive Vice President, responsible for business development, and formerly was leading our association management division over the last 7 years. And then Riley, if you wanted to make an introduction on your end as well.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Eric, and thanks for everyone that joined the meeting. It's impressive to see the number of folks that are on here. But so I'm our VP of Sales and Marketing for the Greater Chicago market for Yellowstone. I've been with the company for just a little over 18 years. A little over 20 years of industry experience. Started at Yellowstone as an intern. Got my degree in horticulture and urban forestry from Western Illinois. Minor in business management, and just love what I do on a day in, day out basis. Get to help support our team and manage, but also still get out and get to be out in the landscape and the snow elements. So appreciate you all having us here tonight. So yeah, Eric, any other introductions, or could you want me to get started on the actual education part?
No, yeah, I think just, and I know you've touched on a few of the key notes, but just broad strokes overview. These are going to be some of the topics that we cover today, just general best practices around your lawn contract and your landscaping agreements. I know that Riley will reference some things that Yellowstone does, I know, but these are going to be broadly applicable to a lot of your agreements that are in place, regardless of who you're working with. So these are often going to be things that are, regardless, like I mentioned, if you're working with other landscapers outside of Yellowstone, that are still good things to look out for. But Riley does have some specific examples of things that they do individually in their agreements, and just things for you to look out for and make sure that you know what you're looking at, especially if you have a community with a really sizable landscaping budget. It's really important to know exactly what's covered in your agreements, what's add-on, what is what are optional enhancements versus what's included in the meat and potatoes of your day-to-day maintenance. Obviously, things that are really impactful in terms of property inspections, both from your landscapers and from the management perspective or the board perspective. Budgeting, a big one for a lot of folks out there, I know, especially in a lot of those larger HOA communities. And then obviously key property enhancements too, things that are going to increase your property value and increase the aesthetic appearance of your property as well, regardless of whether you're a 16-unit walk-up, an 800-home HOA, or a mid-rise or high-rise in the city. So yeah, Riley, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay, yeah. Well said. Yeah. So as Eric mentioned, this is very applicable to really any landscape contract, and is just kind of the same nuts and bolts that is offered through most contractors like ourselves. So it's painted from a view not from Yellowstone, but from the whole landscape industry. So without further ado, I'll kind of walk through just what's included in a lawn contract. So, and the steps and things that go throughout the year. So the first thing that we end up starting with is, if you have a snow contract, is to start on snowplow repairs. So we didn't have a lot of in the way of snow so far for this year. We have a little bit today, but nothing really plowable at the moment. And looking at my crystal ball, if I was a gambling person, I would say that we're probably done with snow for the rest of the year, the way things are forecasting out. But when snow damage does occur, and when it does occur, and hopefully it's nothing like the extreme example that I have here, but how turf damage is generally handled is with seed soil and what we call pen mulch. So kind of at the bottom, you can see little pellets that expand when water hits them. It allows for better water retention. So you sprinkle some new soil down, put some new seed down, and then repair with the pen mulch for little dips and dings that happen during the snow season. If you have a really large area, like the extreme example that I mentioned before, where somebody really messes up and causes a lot of damage, that's when you're going to use seed soil and blanket. Generally, the target is to get all of these repairs done by April 30th. However, if we have an elongated winter or an early spring, that timing can change, but targeting to have everything done by April 30th. This year, a lot of snow repairs will get done a lot sooner, take advantage of some of the spring rains, and allow the seed germination process to occur. Other spring helpful hints, things like that you get from your community. Just keep in mind that if a resident didn't move things away from driveways, like Malibu lights and things like that, when there's a snow event, those things can't be seen. So if you get damage, complaints, of course, have your contractor come and look at it, but oftentimes not liable for those types of things that are in the way of our snow removal operation. So really important, like we're talking about lawn right now, to have a snow preseason meeting to let residents know, hey, move your items away from driveways and sidewalks where they're not going to get damaged. So just kind of a few disclaimers, in there to be aware of from a contractor's perspective. If you have asphalt, concrete, there are going to be scrapes, marks, chips that may occur from snow removal operations, generally just cosmetic, particularly with asphalt. It's one thing we get a lot of feedback on. We use steel blades in most cases, unless poly blades are requested. And steel blades, they scrape a lot better, but oftentimes can leave some cosmetic damage on them. But generally, if you're doing seal coating, that's all taken care of, at a different time, and covers up a lot of that stuff, and you're going to have better snow removal results that way. But that can be expected with the type of equipment that has to be used in a commercial snow removal setting. So you get past the snow piece of it, and then it's really time to start getting into the landscape side of it. So first thing we work on is spring cleanup, generally completed within the first 45 days of a start of a contract. So example, if your contract starts April 1st, having everything done by May 15th. Usually not usually, but what is included in a spring cleanup is removal of accumulated leaves throughout the winter, any debris that's left over that accumulates. Like in this photo here, you can see a crew member cutting down ornamental grass that was left for winter interest. So those types of perennials are cut down. Other types of perennials that are left up are generally like sedum. Those are cut down, as well. So as you're communicating to homeowners as well, your landscaper isn't out there with a chainsaw butchering all your landscape. This is just part of the cleanup operations, and we're getting rid of the spent plant material from the previous season. And then as you finish up your spring cleanup, mowing begins. So generally you can figure third, maybe fourth week of April is generally when most mowing operations, depending on the spring, begin. So if you have more than 3.5 inches of turf that's grown, then it's ready to start mowing. Some years we've mowed first week of April. It just kind of depends on how the spring is starting to shape up. So from week to week, And I'll get a little bit more in depth later on about when you mow, when we don't mow, when a contractor doesn't mow. But generally, you're figuring 1 inch of growth from 1 week to the next when mowing operations commence from week to week. The industry has pretty much went to all mulching of grass blades on sites versus many years ago, 15 plus years ago, everything was bagged, removed off of sites, very labor intensive, made the cost of the contract more inflated than it really needed to be. And the technology with mowers has come a lot further in terms of being able to mulch the blades of grass better. And actually, the fertilizer that you have in your contract, a lot of it is stored in those blades of grass and gets returned back to the soil that way. And then at the end of the day, crews blow off the sidewalks when we're done mowing, line trimming for the day. One thing to be aware of is that when we're mowing, if anyone's ever ran a line trimmer before in their life, you can't get next to a vertical surface without actually hitting it or causing some damage. So if you don't have buffer zones, and I'll show examples of that later, around light poles and decks and siding and things like that, you can expect that damage is going to occur. So it would be important to do an assessment and figure out, do we have buffer zones around everything? And if not, what's our tolerance level for damage that might occur? Also, a lot of times throughout the year, let's say Comcast or the cable company, they put a new wire in place. If it's not buried deep enough, that's going to be at risk of getting hit by the mower if we're not made aware of those types of things. So also when we're doing bed edging and things like that, if it's not buried deep enough, those things are going to be at risk of getting cut. So just keep that in mind as the season begins on those types of things. Those are, of course, get a lot of comments sometimes. Well, you need to call Julie for those types of things to have the wire, the actual cable wires. I'm talking TV cables, not electric cables, Julie. But a lot of those lines are dead in a lot of cases and are not active anymore. So and they're not going to come in and Julie locate all of the cables on an entire property. They would never get the actual material work done that they need to get done. So just things to keep in mind when it comes to mowing. And then standardly in a contract, there's 3 fertilizations for the turf that are included. Some folks ask for more, some ask for less, but and I'll get a little bit more in depth of what these fertilizations mean. But your first application, depending on weather between March and May, that has your pre-emergent crabgrass control, a broadleaf weed control, and then your fertilizer in there as well. And then your second round is usually between June and August. Third round, September, October. Obviously, timing changes depending on how many you actually want included in your contract. Generally, you can figure about 3.5 pounds of active ingredients per 1,000 square feet. That usually comes out to about 3 50-pound bags of fertilizer for every acre. This is, excuse me, the kind of machine that generally gets used to apply fertilizer and then the weed control. So you can see the hopper that's on top that has the granular fertilizer in it. The plastic barrels that you see on the side, that generally is our, not generally, but it is the broadleaf weed control. That is a liquid application that is applied to the turf. So you have granular for the fertilizer and liquid for your broadleaf weed control. When a crew finishes, your contractor should be leaving some type of notification that they have left the job and that an application has occurred. And sometimes we get questions of how long should somebody wait before they use the turf again. Standardly, I would just recommend just tell folks after 24 hours, the product should be dry. Usually it's dry within the first hour or two after it's applied. These are being applied at by a licensed applicator. So it's at rates that aren't going to be harmful to pets or humans if something was ingested or something along those lines. But you're not going to see big globs of fertilizer, all over the place that is going to cause an issue. Weed control. So when we talk about weed control, there are two different weed controls. So there's pre-emergent. So the top photo, you see the grass that is growing over the sidewalk. That is crabgrass. So crabgrass, really the best way to be controlled is through a pre-emergent weed control. So once that crabgrass hits that barrier in the soil from the pre-emergent, that seed germinates, hits that, and then kills the weed in the spring. And that's what helps mitigate the amount of crabgrass that you're going to see. Now, if you have a thin, weak turf and bare spots, there's no amount of pre-emergent weed control that's going to keep crabgrass from breaking through. You need to have a healthy stand of turf to really fight off these types of weeds. Once that germinates and you do have breakthrough, you don't have very many options after that. There's a post-emergent, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's a specialty herbicide that it takes to control that. Now, the bottom weed is obviously our favorite one, the dandelion. That is a broadleaf weed, and that is controlled with a post-emergent herbicide. So that can't be controlled with a pre-emergent weed control. So you need to understand the difference between the two of those, because sometimes folks think pre-emergent weed control, you see that, and it's going to control every weed that's out there, and that's not the case. So there's broadleaf weeds like dandelions, and then there's grassy weeds like crabgrass that's better controlled with a pre-emergent. Sidewalk edging, generally included in a scope of work. So a machine like you see here has a blade on it that spins around, creates a nice edge along the sidewalks. It's just designed to keep a neat appearance and keep the grass from growing over the sidewalks. And then when the crew is done with the day, they'll blow the debris off at the end of the day. And then shrub pruning included in the contract in most scopes. So generally 2 rounds is enough in the Midwest market. So one is completed in June. The second one is completed in August. If you have flowering shrubs during those times, your contractor should wait for those blooms to be spent and then come back and prune them at a different time. So in a commercial landscape contract, generally pruning means by means of shearing. So not hand pruning. If hand pruning is required, obviously that takes a lot more time and needs to be communicated with your contractor if that's the type of pruning you're looking to have done. And then the amount of hours needs to be adjusted to make sure that we're accommodating to be able to perform that type of service. But generally everything done with shears and the debris cleaned up and removed offsite at the end of the pruning cycle. Most contracts kind of have a height restriction. So anything up to 6 feet is generally considered part of the contract. Once you get over 6 feet, then you need some specialty equipment, different types of pruners. In a lot of cases, particularly like in that last picture there, they've grown above the windows just because most shrubs aren't made to just grow 2 or 3 feet and be done. They continue to grow 6, 10, 12, 15 feet tall if you don't keep them in check. And as shrubs get older, the harder it is to keep them under that 6 foot. So one of the most under-recommended things I think on a property is dormant and rejuvenation pruning. So if you have an association that's probably 10 years or older and you've never done dormant or rejuvenation pruning, it's probably something you really need to consider having done. Every contractor is a little bit different in terms of how they want to signify to homeowners if homeowners don't want something trimmed. Generally standard, a lot of folks say put a red flag in the bed or on the shrub that homeowner doesn't want something pruned. And that means we won't trim anything in that bed that belongs to that or that is around that homeowner's area. Trees really just cleaned up, trimmed up for clearance pruning. So anything in that 10-foot range that might be dead, trimming that out. Sucker growth at the bottom, anything where somebody is walking under the tree, getting hit in the head with a branch, those are trimmed up. But if you're truly looking for a true tree care, crown cleaning, things like that, that's when you talk to a landscape company that has a tree department or a tree company. Bed maintenance. So one of the biggest things everyone talks about are weeds. So weeds are just something that happen in and throughout the year. So a couple different methods of controlling them. They can be pulled or chemically treated. And this is just an ongoing process. So a property is never going to be weed free. So generally you have your contractor come in, they do their number of services for that day, or depending on how large your property is, it could be there multiple days. But by the time that truck leaves and by the time it comes back, there's going to be weeds that are going to germinate in between. And sometimes they may get larger than most would want. Those are pulled. Anything that's like in the infant stages of becoming a larger weed, those are better off to just be chemically treated because it's harder to get the roots from those. So it's an ongoing process. Generally, your contractor will kind of quadrant out a property and say, hey, we're going to take care of this area this week, we're going to take care of this area next week, and then you kind of keep that cycle going through throughout the season. Bed cultivation. So really, this is only really kind of reserved for a property that has existing mulch. So when you have existing mulch, you can come through and kind of break up the crust layer of the mulch, and it allows the water to saturate a little bit better. But if you're annually mulching every year, then it's not required because you have brand new mulch, and you're not providing any added benefit by doing that. If you have just bare soil, you're not coming through and just turning over bare dirt. If you're turning over bare dirt in a planting bed, that means you're disrupting the root layer of the plants, and you're just going to be causing more damage to that root zone. So if you're doing the bed cultivation, usually in unison, you're doing a bed edging, completed 2 times a year. You see the photo of the crew member that's using a mechanical edger. So that machine will come through, put a nice edge on the bed. If we can't use mechanical means, then and it has to be done by hand, we'll use a spade, clean up the beds, put a nice definition on it. I have noticed kind of year over year feedback from communities is that, hey, we don't want our beds to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We just want you to use a line whip and clean up the bed edges. So that's just the two-way communication to have with your contractor to determine what's the best practice and best outcome for your community. And then you get all the way through the year, and the leaves start to fall, and your fall cleanup begins. So really, this is just an ongoing process. So leaves are generally mulched in the mowing process. So the grass continues to grow. You're going to have leaves. Those are going to get mulched back into the turf and providing the right nutrients back to the turf. If you have large accumulations of leaves that are piled and they actually need to be removed from the property, like in this circumstance, leaves get blown to the street, and then like a vacuum trailer or truck, your contractor could use or whatever their means are to take those away. Can't be done on every single visit with that type of a vacuum, but when you have big areas where maybe you have more mature trees, just things that your contractor needs to take into consideration for the cleanup. Not only do the leaves need to be cleaned up, there are perennials that need to be cut down. And again, this is something you could talk to your contractor about and say, hey, I want all my perennials cut back for the before the season begins. I know there are some articles out there that say, hey, don't cut this type of perennial or that type of perennial. Everyone has their own opinion on that. But horticulturally, if you're removing spent plant material, the roots are still intact and are going to be providing the nourishment it needs to be able to survive the winter and rebloom in the spring. But that's some things for you to work with your contractor on. But generally, we'll leave everything up that has winter interest. So like the Carl Foresters that I had in one of the first slides, or like sedum, those are generally left up for the winter. But some folks don't want them and they want them cut back, and that's totally fine. Eric.
Yeah, I was just going to add in on the fall cleanup kind of process and comment. I will say it's more and more common, and I'm sure you see it as well, but I feel like many years ago, like the fall cleanup was kind of like a more singular event, at least at like properties with like not a huge sprawling sort of landscape, where obviously just with factors including climate change and a number of other factors, like that fall cleanup process is much longer than it used to be. So I think that sometimes homeowners or board members, that initial fall cleanup, they say, oh, well, we're only in, November 1st, we still have another 30 days, or we might have another 60 days of, warmer weather yet and unseasonable warmth in December. And to that very question, I think that's why, like Riley mentioned, that the fall cleanup is much more of a longer period than it maybe once was a decade ago, where that was kind of a more singular event or a week where that happened. Often we've seen communities where that fall cleanup has a few visits, whether that's November and then a follow-up that might need to get added, whether it's part of your contract or not, in December, if we have a lot of late season leaf debris that accumulates and things like that. So it's one of those where after the first visit during the fall cleanup, I would say hold your horses a little bit on saying, oh, the landscapers didn't get to everything, because it might require multiple visits across many weeks or a couple months, especially just given trending weather patterns over the last few falls and winters.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then also, you see some contracts that end on November 15th. So that might work for maybe a community that's 10 years or less. But anything over that, as you start to get mature trees, if you're stopping on the 15th, that taking it to the 30th really can be beneficial. If you're worried about an early snowfall, in some cases, if you want to stop it on the 15th, that's fine too. But then maybe consider just like having a budget to have an extra fall cleanup done in December, in the event there's an elongated fall, as you mentioned. Some things just to kind of like as residents and homeowners, board members, just things that come up throughout the season. So when we get calls a lot of times, hey, you guys haven't come back and blown off the sidewalk. Well, everything in a landscape service day has a process. So there's bed detail, there's mowing, there's line trimming, and then at the end of the day, we come through and then we clean everything up. So if you get a call early in the day and hey, they just came through and they haven't blown the sidewalk off, most likely means we just haven't finished for the day. So if someone completely sees a truck leave the job, then that's when you call your management company, put in a work order, and then get the contractor to come back and fix anything they might have missed. This is a big one from residents, and that you might get feedback on, is just why didn't the contractor mow this week? And here's a few reasons why. So if we, like, say for instance, this past week we've had 2 inches plus of rain. I haven't seen final totals yet, but let's say that was April in the growing season. There is no way that your contractor would be able to mow without causing significant damage to the property. And in some cases, when I say damage, it's really not even damage. It's just tire tracks where the mud comes up and it presents itself as damage. Now, but then there are times where you have contours on a property and mower slide and things like that. So sometimes it's better to skip the mowing, work on the bed detail, and then wait for things to dry out and then come back the next week. So that does create, some longer grass, some unsightly turf, and that can be compounded from week to week. We've had springs where, you've had 2 weeks where you just couldn't mow. So you either have to bite the bullet and say, hey, we're going to have some damage. We need to be aware of that and communicate that to residents, so you don't end up with something like the top picture where you have something that's going to be unsightly for a few weeks. And then conversely, you have the hot and dry months. So at the bottom photo, you've got heat tracks from when the grass was mowed when it was really hot out. And it doesn't cause any damage to the turf. That's just snapping the grass blade off, and the roots are still alive, but it gives the appearance that it's chemical damage or something like that. And that's not the case. It's just, it was mowed when it was really hot. So if you don't have more than 1 inch of growth from 1 week to the next, it's better just to skip it. And I know somebody had asked a question prior to this about mowing at 3 to 3.5 inches of height. Completely agree with you 100%. I'd even go a shade higher in some cases. Like I do that at my own yard. Your grass stays greener when you leave it higher. So shouldn't be mowing it 1.5 inches. Now there is different contours in a property that cause scalping and things like that to occur, and those need to be addressed with maybe regrading and things like that. But so those are some reasons why you may not be mowing from week to week. But your contractor should always be providing service every week and removing weeds and doing bed detail and things like that. So as you start the season, just remind folks never to approach the crew. So they are operating loud equipment. A lot of times it's 2-cycle equipment. They have the earplugs in, or they should have the earplugs in. They don't have the greatest visibility in some cases. If somebody were to tap them on the shoulder while they're out there working, very dangerous for the worker and the person that's doing that. So if there is something that needs to be communicated, always communicate through your management company, through your account manager, whomever. That way you're communicating the right things and you're doing it in a safe manner. You'd be surprised how many people approach the crew and could potentially create a safety issue. So now that we've covered the contract piece of it, before the season begins, start thinking about the best way to provide communication to the community. So one, your contractor should be assigning somebody to be able to communicate with you, cell phone number, email, all that type of information. That way there's good two-way communication. And then put the contractor, a secondary person to discuss anything that might occur. Maybe somebody's on vacation, has a sick day, whatever it might be. Having a secondary backup point of contact is always helpful. Anything that your contractor needs to know before the season begins, if there's any special areas that needs to be addressed, maybe an area that holds a lot of water, any landscape problem areas that need to be addressed. That way everyone's on the same page before the season begins, and everyone's on the same page. Also, if we have, we as a contractor, we also want to know who are we supposed to be communicating with. So should be communicating with the property manager, of course. If the management company and you all agree, and you have maybe a board liaison or maybe somebody on a committee that's with the landscape, how do you want to be communicated with? So that way we're hitting all of the right types of communication with the right folks throughout the season. Always good, and I'll talk about spring inspections and things like that, but setting a date, what day do you want your spring inspection to be done? So, and who do you want involved in that? It's better when you're doing inspection that you have a smaller group. So grab your account manager, property manager, maybe 1 or 2 other folks. When you have 10 people with 10 different opinions on things, a lot of times you don't get as much done as you want when you're inspecting the property. So work with the board as a community and figure out what are the goals, and that really helps your contractor dial in what you're looking for in the walk, and then your contractor is providing that consultation. Also, let your contractor know what day is your garbage day. So we don't want to be, if your garbage day is Wednesday, we don't want to be there. If there's gonna be trash cans in the way, if it's Wednesday, we'd like to schedule it for Thursday. So then that way we can be cleaning up garbage that, the wind blows around and things like that. It doesn't always work out perfectly like that, but the last thing we want to be is the day of your garbage day. So we talk about property walks and how we inspect. And so here's some best practices to consider. So when you do an inspection, I think it's important to stick to some tried and true perennials and shrubs. If you get way too large of a plant palette, things don't become consistent. And then also they may not be the best choice for a landscape that receives a lot of abuse from pedestrians, from cars, from pets, things like that. You need things that are going to be very hardy and be able to withstand some of the abuse that it sees in the landscape season. So before you do the property walk, get everyone together, obtain the goals that you want for the property for that particular season, and that way everyone's on the same page before you begin it. If you have issues from the previous season, bring those so your account manager can work through those, review any work orders that you might have from the management company. Sometimes it's better to just address them in person while you're there and everybody's on the same page. So when you're out there, we kind of break things into three different categories. So one, we need to be looking for safety and security. So if there's something that's presenting a safety issue, bringing that to light so it can be addressed. So let's say, for instance, you have a tree that's blocking a stop sign. Okay, so that needs to be trimmed up so somebody doesn't have an accident. If there's an overgrown shrub that's at somebody's front door that presents a security issue, discuss it, figure out what the best plan of action is. So lots of different things that can happen in a landscape that may create an unsafe environment. And then you move on to functional enhancements. Moving on to functional enhancements. So one would be like poor drainage. If there's an area where it's too wet, it's not allowing your property to be used as functionally as you want to. So putting in drain tile, any turf that's getting shaded out. So mature trees that cause the turf to not grow. Do the trees need to be pruned up? Do we need to create a new planting bed? Things like that may present issues like that. And then the last thing we look at, which is usually the first thing that everyone looks at, is aesthetics. How do we increase the curb appeal on a property and add value back to it? So it could be re-landscaping entryways. I saw someone had a question about long-term master plans. That could be something that you discuss before the walk begins, and how do you work through that? And a lot of properties, especially in the Chicagoland area and condos, townhomes, associations, they're starting to get in that 30 to 40 year range of when plant material may have been put in, and they have an aesthetic lifespan at some point where things just need to be refreshed and start over again. So here's some examples that you might see. So I talked about buffer zones earlier. So if you have sod that goes all the way to the foundation of a home or a building, those are things that, like, very inexpensively you can cut the sod out, throw mulch in, or throw just perennials in there. That there's a safety issue here too, because you have a gas meter that is literally right in the landscape. So anyone that might not just be your landscaper, it could be anyone that might be doing any type of maybe construction or siding or things like that. So better just to cut a buffer zone and allow that to be just more aesthetically pleasing, and then also much safer for everyone too. Backfill. So maybe you poured new sidewalks that needed to be, or maybe like in this case, you had a new sidewalk, but over time, the soil settles below the grade of the sidewalk, prevents trip hazards. So things to look at from a safety perspective on that end. hazardous trees. So like here's a silver maple. They tend to split apart. So if you're identifying those things, I'm not telling you this thing could fall tomorrow, but it could fall in 3 weeks from now, or whatever, or the next windstorm like we're going to have tonight into tomorrow. It's going to cause some tree damage. So you need to be aware of potential risks with your trees. So you're always looking. Sometimes you're looking at ground level a lot of times on your landscape walks, but you also need to be looking up into the trees and seeing what might present an issue. This is a big one, drainage. You don't want a bunch of downspouts that are running out into the lawn. One, it doesn't look nice. Two, it's going to drive the cost of your landscape contract up, because if you're the person that has to stop, get off the mower, move that out of the way, get back on the mower, every single week, that all adds up, and your contractor is going to make note of that and is going to cause an increase in your contract. So over time, if you have this issue, burying these underground, because I do agree you got to get the water away from the buildings, but better off to try to do it in an underground fashion in a lot of cases. Also, a lot of those extensions and stuff, kids out playing, people doing some of their own gardening, they get stepped on, they get hit with a mower on accident. Those types of things, they happen, and you end up replacing them. Ends up being expensive in the long run. So this looks like nice, beautiful yellow flowers, but this was just a mishmash of all different types of things. So sometimes you just have to start all over, do a redesign, rip everything out, and start fresh in the landscape. This is one that we see a lot. So developers, when they build, a lot of times they leave this little strip of turf. This is just better to rip out the turf, put in mulch, cobblestone, get rid of that shrub up by the entrance. You can't even open your door on a car without it getting hit. So putting in perennials in those areas, things that can be plowed over in the wintertime, just going to add a lot more value to your property. Any areas where you have turf that's getting shaded out. So in this case, there is no perfect shade seed that's out there. Yes, it will germinate for the first year or two, and then it will start thinning out again. So if you find yourself fighting that fight, in some cases, it's better just to enlarge the plant beds and then create a planting bed, either just put in mulch or throw in a few perennials, and it's going to add a lot more value than throwing money at seed every year that may or may not germinate. So when it comes to landscape budgeting, we're here, your contractor is there to provide consultation. So we're here to help you find the highest and best use of your budget and provide you consultation, and then also help you plan the entire season. So if you can work with a contractor that will say, here's all the things that we recommend horticulturally. Now, does it fit in the budget? Answer maybe yes, answer maybe no. But when you are able to work with a contractor and develop a partnership to say, hey, what are the most preventative things that protect our landscape asset? They can work with you to say, hey, here's the recommendations, and it's $10,000 and your budget's $5,000. What is the most bang for your buck to protect as many assets as you possibly can on your property? So working with a budget and working with your contractor like that can be very beneficial. So other things to pre-plan before the season begins. If you have annual rotations, so flower displays, you're going to want to contract grow those. Your contractor does, and then you want to order those early. So in spring, we want to order things in December. Summer, we want to order for January. Yes, there are inventories of annuals, and those can always be pulled out for that. But if you want specific types of flowers that you want for your property, you're going to want to order those early. So just to highlight a few preventative maintenance types of things. So tree and shrub care highlights. So one question we often get is mulch. obviously it's generally one of the biggest landscape budget items that folks have to consider whether they want to do it or not. One thing that you might want to consider is doing a top dressing versus a 2-inch layer mulch. So you hear a lot of times we're going to do a 2-inch layer mulch and then we're not going to do it for another 2 years. Oftentimes, by the time you get to the second year, the layer has decomposed and isn't as aesthetically pleasing as you wanted it to be. So if you do a top dressing every year, it's just a very thin layer. You get a fresh look of mulch. It's a tangible service that all community members benefit from and reduces mulch buildup. So versus if you do a 2-inch layer all the time, you're going to get a buildup of mulch, and that can be harmful to trees and shrubs at times. So it's slightly more expensive when you look at it year over year, about a 10% when you add it over a 2-year span. But just kind of one of those trade-offs you might want to consider, that cost benefit. Dormant pruning, I mentioned that a little bit earlier. Probably one of the most underrated things. Like right now is a great time to do that before things start germinating. So if you have a lot of shrubs that need to be cut back, it's going to extend the life of the plant. For trees, better branching habits for sure, and that's going to create a long-term benefit to your trees. If you have bad branching habits, you're going to have more storm damage, things like that can be a lot more costly in the future. Eric, got a question?
Yeah, just a question that I know I often have gotten over the years, like for dormant pruning. I feel like boards and landscaping committees will often ask like the basic question of like, how do you know what to cut in that case if it's not, showing its bloom and you're not really seeing very visibly what dead matter is versus what's still healthy? Like, what is like the sort of rule of thumb and like the philosophy around that?
Yeah, so for dormant pruning on shrubs, it's generally you're taking a third of the plant away, and then you're able to tell what is dead and what is not dead when you're pruning shrubs and trees as well. So if you're in there and you're at ground level and you know what you're looking for, yes, you'll be able to easily tell what is dead. And then also you're looking for crossing branches, suckers that are growing at the bottom. And in some cases, like different types of shrubs, they can be completely rejuvenated, and you can cut them all the way to the ground, and they're going to grow back healthier than they were before. So like dogwoods, spireas, things like that, those are better off, like cut them all the way back to the ground, and they're going to grow back into a new shrub. And it's kind of like mulch. It's very expensive, it seems like up front, but think of having to replace all those shrubs and you get more out of it. When you're in trees, that's the better time because then we can see what the branching structure looks like, and you can get, or the climbers can get in there, see where all the branches are, maybe cause a problem in the future, and you're able to reduce the crown weight as well, which helps with storm damage and things like that as well. And you're able to tell the dead material there, especially when you get up there in a bucket truck or a climber. If you've never had an inventory done on your property for trees, this is just kind of what one example might look like. So you have a dot for every species of tree. A lot of these are GIS based. So it's an actual physical, like arborist comes out, dots where all the trees are at, and then identifies things that might be wrong with them, how large they are, and the species. So a good investment to make, just so you know what you have and you know how to prevent things in the future. So before a season begins, like if here's just some highlights of some things that might happen to trees. So like apple leaf scab. So a lot of communities are planted heavily in crab apples and hawthorns, and you get apple leaf scab. So this is a preventative fungicide that you spray on your trees 3 times a year. But it is one of those things that you have to budget for early, because if you miss the opportunity to apply right at bud break, you can't do it in July and think you're going to have results. So something you need to put in your budget early in the year if this is something you want to consider and protect the health of the trees. One thing that every community is experiencing is a fungus called Rhizophora, and a lot of properties, again, overplanted with spruces, and this causes the needles to become brown. They eventually drop their needles, and eventually causes the premature death of spruces. So it like Colorado blue spruces, everyone loves those types of trees. This disease has become so rampant. Most nurseries, they don't even grow Colorado blue spruces anymore. It's just not a matter. It's a matter of when you get it, not if you're going to get it. So if you want to preventatively treat this, you need to start with a fungicide application for these types of trees. And the same goes with Scots pine, Austrian pine. Everybody, if you have these on your property, you have this type of fungus in one way, shape, or form. So again, needs to be approved early in the year, because if you miss the windows, the effectiveness of the fungicide will not work. And if you have a lot of these, instead of doing applications, you may want to consider doing an inventory of all of them and then making a decision: do we remove all of these trees, and then develop a 3-year plan of how you're going to remove and replace them all. Some turf healthcare highlights. So we talked about crabgrass control. So one thing would be if you have breakthrough, there is a post-emergent option to consider. So if you want the Cadillac of turf healthcare programs, you may want to incorporate a post-emergent into your turf program. So what this will do, once it germinates in June timeframe, you're going to want to come through and apply this application, and then it won't become such a hideous weed when you get into that August timeframe when everyone notices it, and that's where you're getting a lot of feedback. So the application on pre-emergent can be great, but again, if you have bare dirt, or maybe we have a lot of rain in the spring, it will break down the pre-emergent layer, and you will have crabgrass outbreak no matter what. Grub control. If you don't do grub control on your property, it's one of the #1 things that you should do, and you'll regret it if you do get grubs, because the cost of doing the application is much less than having to replace a lot of turf. So ask your contractor about that. Ask for consultation. Make sure that you're using a product called, your contractor's using a product called ancillary. That is the superior insecticide to use over another product called Merit, was the old product. Ancillary doesn't impact pollinators, so bees. Merit will. And also the Merit has, the ancillary has a more wide range of insects that it will control as well. Aeration, right up there with with grub control. One of the best things you can do for your property is to aerate your turf. So if you've never seen the machine, it takes plugs out of the soil and reduces compaction, allows for better water and oxygen exchange, and allows the roots to grow a lot deeper, and you'll have a much healthier stand of turf. And while you're doing your aeration, and maybe you have some bare areas, overseeding at the same time is a great thing to consider, because all of the seed will actually land in those cores, and you'll have good seed to soil contact, and that will allow the turf to become healthier, and you'll have a better stand of turf and germination. One of the last things that you consider is capsulated gypsum. So this is in conjunction with all your other 3 rounds. This isn't a fertilizer, but it's more of a soil amendment, and it's going to help minimize dog damage, compaction, salt damage. It's one of those things, like if you just decide to do it 1 year and you're done, I wouldn't recommend it. Like, you need to do it over a 3-year span. and you're really going to start seeing the results from this on top of all your fertilizer. So, and it's an organic product. It levels out the pH in your soil and allows for more of the micronutrients to be available to the plant. And then you have your 3 rounds of fertilization that's in the contract. If you want to do a 4th one, this is more like your winterizer fertilizer. So going into the fall to be ready for the spring, helps better root strength and development, helps the grass recover from the winter, and the grass becomes a lot greener in the spring. And then lastly, if you have any big areas that need to be seeded, slit seeding is a great way. It cuts slits into the soil, and then it drops the seed in it, and then you have good seed to soil contact, and that allows for germination, and then you can reestablish the bare areas.
Yes, Reacher from the TV show Reacher.
There we have his feedback. Yeah, so thank you. Those are some things that you can do to budget, things you can do to inspect your property, get it ready for the year, and kind of develop that really strong relationship with your contractor on a year in and year out basis. So happy to answer any questions as we go through, and I can give you a little bit of information about us as well. So we're all over in the Chicagoland area. We do everything in-house, so maintenance, snow, irrigation, all those types of services. We have a tree care team that all they do is tree care, so we're an arboricultural service as well, not just lawn maintenance, snow removal. Our account managers will consult you on anything landscape installation or enhancements, long-term planning, those types of things. All of our turf apps are done in-house, not subcontracted out. Irrigation is done in-house as well. So if you have irrigation needs, we actually do interior scapes as well. So anything inside of a building we can do. And then snow removal, one of the largest contractors in the Chicagoland market. So happy to help answer any questions or anything we can help out with.
Yeah, this is Lou from Regal South. Our condos are surrounded by lava rock. Would it be difficult to take that out and go with sod seed?
Well, yeah, so it would be a labor-intensive project to remove that, but not difficult or not something that couldn't be done. And then you broke up at the last second. You wanted to replace the lava rock with
About sod.
Yeah, so as long as you're not taking the sod right up to the edge of the building, I would still recommend some type of buffer zone and put in mulch or something along those lines versus.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean sod. I meant mulch.
Mulch. Yep. Yeah. So yes, that would be something I would recommend. Yeah. So depending on how many yards of lava rock you have to get out, but definitely something that can be worked out.
And would that be priced as a square foot?
It would be based on so it wouldn't be by square foot. I would have somebody come take a look at it, and they would price, generally a lump sum price that would tell you they would base an estimate based on hours and material, and then they would give you a lump sum price of what it would be.
And would I have to get a total board approval for you to come out, or could we just come out at my request?
You would just have to contact talk to Eric and get you my contact information, and just send us an email, and then I'll get one of our account managers to come take a look and schedule a time to meet with you.
Okay. Sounds reasonable for sure.
Yep.
Riley?
Yes.
Yeah, I was interested in the fact that the Colorado Blue Spruce is having so much trouble. I'd love to have some trees like that on our property, but obviously that's not a good choice. What would be your suggestion for some trees that we could have that would give color all year round, but obviously not the blue spruce?
Yep. So if you're looking for an evergreen, limber pine is kind of the go-to right now. They kind of have a blue tint to the underside, but really kind of like a they're in the white pine family, and they don't have as many issues as like the spruces do right now. So that's kind of like the main one that I recommend to everyone right now.
Lumber pine. Okay, thank you.
Eldridge has his hand raised if you want to ask your question.
Yeah, go ahead, Eldridge.
We have a small property, and I think we don't need a team. We just have 9 units, so I don't think that that would be a good fit for us. But your class is very informative, and I really appreciate it. You do a great job.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Riley, in the event that we do have like someone who is at like a smaller community that might need like something on the smaller end, do you guys ever like have like referrals for something that might be a little bit too small for you guys at all ever?
I don't really have like an inventory of like other contractors to reach out to, but I could if someone had something like that, I could certainly, ask around and see who it might be, reputable to do that. And in some cases, like, if somebody has like 6 units like that and we're doing the building across the street or something, that might make sense, for us. So always something to consider.
Excellent.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from any of the attendees? Yeah, Beth.
Hi, Eric. I sent this in with my RSVP, but we are not happy with our summer landscaper, but they do a good job in the winter, oddly enough. Is it typical that most associations use the same contractor for both summer and winter, or would we expect to pay more if we split services? We've got kind of ornery board members who want to see a change, but also, are happy with the winter service. So it's just hard to know how to make a change or, what to do in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll tell you how I would approach it. So we generally will accept lawn contracts without snow, but generally we don't accept snow without the lawn contract.
Okay.
One, because snow, there's a bigger, most times a capital expenditure that comes with it with the equipment. So to put it in perspective, we might say your property requires a skid steer. We're only going to use that 4 months out of the year for the most part. So it's not a 12-month of investment for us. So, but there are some caveats to it based on how large a property is. But in most cases, contractors prefer to have both the lawn and the snow. So that's generally what you see. But based on your situation, how I would handle it is, yes, we would do your lawn maintenance, but generally we wouldn't do the snow without the lawn with a few exceptions to that. But
no, that makes sense. And I prefer personally to stick with the same vendor throughout the year.
Yep.
But because we have a smaller property and a weird, parking area, the service we get in that awkward space behind our building is actually quite good. But yeah, I mean, I think we need to have a talk with the landscaper about the summer service, to be honest.
Yeah.
To get that improved or make a change overall. So thank you so much. This was a really informative session. Lots to think about from what you provided.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going through the a few of the others pre-submitted questions as well to see if there was anything that wasn't yet really touched on. Um, Oh, there was one that I think is, I mean, I know that we talked about being through the snow season at this point, but there was a question about like salt's impact on the landscaping over time, and like whether like oversalting or like the use of what particular product has like different benefits or detriments to like leading into like spring planning for landscaping. So are there any best practices around that? I know we're a little bit late to the game now that we're through snow season, but for future purposes.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of one of those things that it's a necessity in some cases that has to be done. So it's all about how you want to mitigate your risk in the snow season. So if you require a lot of ice melt, there for the sidewalks, you're going to want kind of a calcium chloride, magnesium, sodium chloride blend. So kind of a combo of three things. That's going to mitigate the amount of turf damage that occurs. If you have parking lots and things like that, there's really no way around of like to economically use bagged material. You got to use bulk material, and that is more corrosive. So it's just kind of being smart with each application that you, if you're able to work it that way. So if you're a 2-inch tolerance contract, you probably don't require as much ice melt. But if you have a condo association with a very condensed parking lot, and there's a lot of cars driving over it, you really can't get around not salting because you're going to end up with an ice pack of snow, and that's going to create some issues. So no real good answer to that. There is some lesser corrosive types of materials that are out there, but you're not going to be happy with the effectiveness of it. So, and I generally just wouldn't recommend it. So there is going to be an impact on the landscape, and it's just a matter of being economical and efficient with the amount of ice melt that you're putting down.
Excellent. And then I know I saw that John had his hand raised, but I'm not sure if he's still on. Yeah.
This is John. I did raise my hand. I just wondered what size buildings are too small for you, and also, do you also work with like other elements of landscaping, like trellis, seating areas, potted plants, and those kinds of things to create like spaces?
Yes. So two small buildings. Yeah. Honestly, it's probably better just to reach out and then we could take a look and see, what's all involved in your landscape, and to determine if it's something that's, too small. Because to your point, we have a lot of density in the Chicago market and into the suburbs and, all over. So if there's something we're doing right across the building, it may make sense for us or right across the road, it may make sense for us to be a part of your association. So, yeah, so it's probably just something we need to look at. And then, yes, containers, annual flower rotations. So, we do, like, take for instance, we've all probably been to Navy Pier at one point. We do all the flowers at Navy Pier. So, kind of gives you a little bit of the scope of work that we do. And, we can do everything as large as that to something as small as doing 4 or 5, 6 seasonal rotation in containers as well. So, probably just something we need to look at and then let you know if that's something we can help you out with or not.
Okay. And it sounds like we're already behind for the season. Like you mentioned earlier, probably should have ordered plants by now if you had certain things in mind and that sort of thing. How quickly is the window closing to be able to do something worthwhile for the year?
Yeah, so there's definitely still inventory of seasonal color. But if you're that person that like, hey, I got to have this specific plant for this specific pot, that may or may not be available. But there's still going to be plenty of choices to be able to consider what you want and or have a contractor design, for you. So generally, a contractor of our size will order things on speculation, and we'll order enough of what we need. And then, but there might be some, say you want the most new variety of New Guinea impatient or something like that's out there. And if those are all spoken for, then you may be out for that year. But so I wouldn't not consider planting your summer annuals and fall annuals. It's just something to look at on the front end.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the group? Okay. Well, Riley, we immensely appreciate all of your time. I think this was tremendously insightful, just in terms of the methodology, the method behind the madness. I think it's really helpful just to have this nice primer here. So again, thank you for your time. Thanks to everyone who was able to attend this evening. We will be, as I mentioned at the top of the call, the recording should be ready by later this evening. We do typically just do a little bit of editing just to make sure there's any pauses at the start or end that we want to just cut out, but we'll make sure that this is on the website in short order. And then we will be sending out a link to the full recording as well to everyone that was on the RSVP list. And then we'll send it along to all boards as well, just to make sure that you've got it. But we want to make sure that you have it for future reference. If you want to share with any of your members that weren't able to attend, or if you want us to post a link to it in the document section anywhere within Vantica on the portal, we can always do that as well, just that you've got it for future reference for anyone that might want to utilize it. And then, yes, do feel free to reach out to Riley as well if you do have any questions or follow-ups from the presentation. I'll make sure that we also share his direct contact info as well. Thanks to everyone. Yeah, thank you, Riley. Thanks again for everyone. We will be sending out invites to our next sessions, hopefully a little bit later this month. So do keep an eye out for that as well. We plan to do some things around association lending and best practices around financing for capital projects sometime in April. So we will be sending out some invites for some upcoming events and webinars as well. So be on the lookout for that too.
Thank you, gentlemen, for the great presentation.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks for having us, Eric. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Riley. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Have a good night. Thanks.